This is Chicken Caesar Salad for the Gay Soul, written by Levon Gittins, narrated by Kimberly Yvonne Steele. Chapter 1. What is gay?
To gay or not to gay? That is the question. I'm Leo the Lion, and I'll be your guide throughout this book. I promise by the end of this journey, you will get a deeper understanding of yourself, regardless of your sexual identity.
Anonymous artist, midnight. Birth, black. That was the definition of my skin. No stars could be held there. Only dreams of grandeur within. Taste for the same scent. That was the perversion of my heart. No antonyms could be held there. No expected fever could set alight that path. When my breath odored a testosterone stain, from magic merged in the drizzled rain, and my limbs upheld another man's strain, common to mine on Earth's singular plane, how could I claim my history or the future I was told I'd have to be? For midnight, for every beam of the moon's clandestine light that your hands stroke softly highlight, I question my pulse, my destiny's plight. How could my heart not lead me right? Cloaked in another man's arms, his archipelago of muscles disarm any memory I had of identity. Under that blank night sky, was I his only star? In the paralysis of passion, could we be who we are? We sank into clear waters when all was unclear, baptismal in intent, though reaffirming my despair. Without shadows, without fears, sacred in twilight, barren of all cares, ignited we stare. Me, sinking, thinking the sea my savior, prayer spent he couldn't hear. I must kiss him softly. Midnight, father of this epiphanic rite, will guide our pathways through light, till we pronounce our heart tonight. Inviting the seas purging, the shores yawn, emerging. I arise renewed, waves surreptitiously urging me forth, reborn again a virgin, in the clasp of his hymnal might. I must kiss him softly. Midnight, father of this euphoric rite, will guide our pathways through light, till we pronounce our heart tonight. Heaven, I am in love. The organ flushes in proof. Earth, my veins, shall know no other truth. Historically, and even in modern culture, the term gay has the power to strike an uncomfortable chord. Sometimes used as an insult, these three letters can incite such emotion as to provoke a violent response or promote psychological damage. Throughout the years, a word once used to refer to happiness has now grown into a title surrounded by stigma. When used in this manner, the label is a judgment on sexual orientation and used to describe homosexual men and women. Sexual orientation is the physical and emotional allure that gears hormonal needs towards men, women, both or neither. It is important to understand the broadness of sexual orientation and that someone could be uninterested in sex, but still have a sexual orientation. American society has placed a heavy emphasis on sexuality, increasing confusion among adolescents and adults who don't fit the norm. Some naturally question their orientation, but limit their exploration based on discomfort enforced by culture. To question your sexuality does not make you gay. There is no gay test. Someone may question their sexuality based on not feeling ready to be with anyone, a single deep connection with someone of the same gender, experiencing a random same-sex encounter, sober or intoxicated, finding someone of the same sex physically attractive, having many gay friends, having homosexual relatives, etc.
Remember, sexuality is fluid, and you don't have to choose. Appreciating beauty in the human body just says you have good taste. Are you gay because you know you look good? Not necessarily.
Sexual identity is not something that can be easily boxed because it has many divisions and subdivisions. For example, there are those who consider themselves to be heterosexuals that experience homosexual temptations. Assumptions of sexual identity should never be made on physical appearance. Many hold their sexual identification as highly as their racial and religious identity. LGBT, LGBTQ, LGBTQIA, LGBTQ+, TBLG. These acronyms refer to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, intersex, asexual, or ally. Although all of the different identities within LGBT are often lumped together and share sexism as a common root of oppression, there are specific needs and concerns related to each individual identity. Similarly, it's important to not solely use LGBT acronyms to discuss sexual orientation, as many trans people are straight. This list offers accepted definitions of sexual orientation and gender identity terms. This is not an exhaustive list, but rather an introduction to language used within the community. For more information on accepted usage and terms to avoid, refer to An Ally's Guide to Terminology, created by GLAAD, Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. Ally, typically a non-LGBT person who supports and stands up for the rights of LGBT people, though LGBT people can be allies, such as a lesbian who is an ally to a transgender person. Asexual, a person who generally does not feel sexual attraction or desire to any group of people. Asexuality is not the same as celibacy. Bisexual, a person who is attracted to both people of their own gender and another gender. Cisgender, a person whose personal gender identity matches their assigned sex at birth. Coming out of the closet describes when an LGBTQ person chooses to disclose their sexual orientation or gender identity. Demisexual, a person whose sexual orientation is not limited by someone's gender and who only experiences sexual attraction once a strong emotional connection is formed. Gay, a person who is attracted primarily to members of the same sex, although it can be used for any sex, e.g., gay man, gay woman, gay person. Lesbian is sometimes the preferred term for women who are attracted to women. Gender expression, a term which refers to the ways in which we each manifest masculinity or femininity. It is usually an extension of our gender identity, our innate sense of being male, female, etc. Each of us expresses a particular gender every day by the way we style our hair, select our clothing, or even the way we stand. Our appearance, speech, behavior, movement, and other factors signal that we feel and wish to be understood as masculine or feminine, or as a man or a woman. Gender fluid, a person who does not subscribe to a single gender and whose gender identity may shift, is considered gender fluid. Gender identity, the sense of being male, female, genderqueer, agender, etc. For some people, gender identity is in accord with physical anatomy. For transgender people, gender identity may differ from physical anatomy or expected social roles. It is important to note that gender identity, biological sex, and sexual orientation are separate, and that you cannot assume how someone identifies in one category based on how they identify in another category. Gender nonconforming, GNC, when a person's gender expression does not conform to cultural or societal gender norms, such as feminine or masculine. Heterosexual, a person who is only attracted to members of the opposite sex, also called straight. Homophobia, a range of negative attitudes and feelings towards homosexuality, or people who are identified or perceived as being lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, LGBT. It can be expressed as antipathy, contempt, prejudice, aversion, or hatred, may be based on irrational fear, and is sometimes related to religious beliefs. Homosexual, a clinical term for people who are attracted to members of the same sex. Some people find this term offensive. In the closet, describes a person who keeps their sexual orientation or gender identity a secret from some or all people. Intersex, A person born with variations of sexual characteristics, such as chromosomes, hormones, genitalia, etc., that defy standardized definitions of male and female. Lesbian, a woman who is primarily attracted to other women. Non-binary or genderqueer, a person whose gender identity is not exclusively female or male. The spectrum of non-binary identities encompasses those outside of conventional gender binary, meaning that one may identify as both, neither, or a combination of genders. Pansexual, a person who experiences sexual, romantic, physical, and/or spiritual attraction for members of all gender identities/expressions, not just people who fit into the standard gender binary, i.e., men, women, transgender, etc. Queer. 1. An umbrella term sometimes used by LGBTQA people to refer to the entire LGBT community. 2. An alternative that some people use to queer the idea of labels and categories such as lesbian, gay, bisexual, etc. It is important to note that the word queer is an in-group term and a word that can be considered offensive to some people, depending on their generation, geographic location, and relationship with the word. Questioning. For some, the process of exploring and discovering one's own sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Sexual orientation. The type of sexual, romantic, and/or physical attraction someone feels toward others, often labeled based on gender identity/expression of the person and who they are attracted to. Common labels: heterosexual, lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, etc. Transgender. This term has many definitions. It is frequently used as an umbrella term to refer to all people who do not identify with their assigned gender at birth or the binary gender system. This includes transsexuals, cross-dressers, genderqueer, drag kings, drag queens, and others. Some transgender people feel they exist not within one or two standard gender categories, but rather somewhere between, beyond, or outside of those two genders. Transphobia, the fear or hatred of transgender people or gender nonconforming behavior. Like biphobia, transphobia can also exist among lesbian, gay, and bisexual people, as well as among heterosexual people. Transsexual, a person whose gender identity is different from their biological sex, who may undergo medical treatments to change their biological sex, oftentimes to align it with their gender identity, or they may live their lives as another sex. Anonymous artist. How did you come out? My cousin invited me over and started asking me questions about this new club that was opened, Gay Club. She started asking me if I had heard about it and said that she knew a couple of my friends had been. Then she finally asked. I lied at first. However, I finally gave in. She then said that I should tell my family. I said no. She insisted, then threatened me by saying if I didn't tell them, she was, because they deserved to know. WTF?